I don't want to make a mistake here because I want things to go right. So could you recommend, you know where I'm headed? I'm sorry.
I'm not totally sure, no, but I know from...
We talked, and...
So I think it's written in here, right, depending on
Just
which way you
moved.
want to
So-
take it.
very,
So if you want...
why don't you-
So
Hey,
just
Kathy,
for
could you repeat?
So just for clarification,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. So
For the sake of time,
So moved.
okay, so at the last city council meeting, the city council had a motion before them, which was first passage of conditional rezoning for this property, and the motion failed. The motion did not pass. Since that time, the city administrator received a request from the mayor and from Councilor Beam to have this item back on the agenda for tonight for reconsideration. So that's why on your information sheet at the bottom of page, or agenda item 9 in the requested action, there are 2 items. The first item would be to reconsider the decision from the December 29th meeting. So the question before the council now is, do you want to reopen that motion, reopen that issue? And if you do, then you would vote yes on this first item. And if you don't want to have the council discuss it, if you feel the council's already discussed it and we've decided it and we want to move on, then you would vote no on this first item that's printed in your book. So a reconsideration item is defined under Robert's Rules of Order as well as the City Council working rules. And only people who voted on the prevailing side, and in this particular case, the motion did not pass. So as we just noted, it would be Councilor LaJoy, Councilor Bouchard, Councilor Chance, and the mayor voted no in December on this item, which was the winning side, if you will, the prevailing side. So those folks can make a motion to reopen it for reconsideration. In addition, any counselor who was not present, and that would be you, Councilor Beam, to preserve basically your right to have input on this issue, you also have the right to approve or to make the motion, to initiate the motion to go forward with reconsideration. So there'd be 2 items before you. One is, do we want to reconsider this item or not? And then if it's passed, then immediately before you would be the next item printed in your book, which is number 2 on agenda item 9, which is to approve first passage, and then the council can decide what you want to do with that, approve it, not approve it, refer it to planning board, continue it for additional information, and so forth.
Just one clarification in the motion to reconsider. The vote was actually taken at the January 3rd meeting, not the December 29th.
Oh.
So, just to confuse everybody further, I apologize.
So Kathy, could you read the motion again?
Sure. So
The requested action, basically.
Sure. So the first item for requested action would be to approve reconsideration of the vote taken at the January 3rd City Council meeting regarding the first passage of the conditional rezoning of the property at 209 Webster Street from the NCA district to the OR district, subject to a conditional agreement.
And if we do pass this a particular requested action, does that mean that we are immediately going to vote on whether or not no?
No, both the reconsideration and the actual motion are debatable.
But there could be a vote tonight on whether or not to vote on the original.
If you adopt the reconsideration, it in effect we go right back to the minute before you voted on the original motion. So at that point, you could pass the original motion as was presented, you could turn it down or defeat it, or you could, as is suggested in some of these materials, if you wish to, if you have reconsidered it, you could refer it back to the planning board with directions as to other conditions to be reviewed or to potentially be added to the proposal.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just for clarification, are we debating the reconsideration right now?
That would be the first step.
Okay, do we have to move that to debate the reconsideration, or do we debate the reconsideration before we move it?
There must be a motion before debate.
Because we're debating it right now.
I'm asking what's going to happen. I move that we reconsider the first passage of the conditional rezoning of property of 201 Leicester Street from NCA district to the OR district, subject to a conditional agreement.
Second.
Okay, by Councilor Beam and seconded by Councilor Lyson.
But one of the things that we just approved was a comp plan that talks about the need, for senior housing is a real big need, and it's going to only get more. Also, the consistency with the OR zoning district and a lot of other things. Obviously, there's things that the owner of the property can do. We can't tell somebody that they can't develop their property. It has to be consistent with the zoning, and that's what we're changing.
This is a very challenging decision because as they both expressed, we have identified the need for senior housing as a top priority in this community and really throughout the state. So I guess I'm just wanted a little bit more clarity about what the next steps would be if we were able, if I guess Councilor Lyson's talking about sending it back to the planning board. What exactly does that look like?
One of the things we need to be careful about in this process is we don't want to get into what I call an infinite loop. So every time a condition changes in a conditional zoning application, there has to be a public hearing before the planning board. So if it goes back to the planning board and they say 55 or over and everybody's in agreement with that and it comes back here and you folks say, well, we want a condition on Y, then it goes back to the planning board again.
Okay, everything goes by money. Okay, I want to build something people can afford. The more restrictions you put on this land, the more it's going to cost. The less units, the more per unit. Okay, the less units, the more each unit costs. Again, I want to put affordable housing in here, not something that's restricted and overpriced. And
Okay, so that we'll have to wait for that then. Yeah.
okay, and I'd like to make a couple things clear. Okay, I've been accused of lying and manipulating you people. Okay, I've never lied to you.
That.
At the neighborhood meeting, it was clear the neighborhood did not want to help seniors. Okay, they Did we have a neighborhood meeting?
No. We are the neighbors. We are the neighbors. 2 miles. Which neighbors were at that meeting?
The city made an announcement. We had a neighborhood meeting right here in this room. You can ask Dave. I mean,
Who came? I was there. I can attest to it. We never said we were against seniors. Right. Never said we were against seniors. Never said that, Leo. You're putting words in our mouth.
It's Louis.
No.
Well, it was in the paper, right? That's how it works. Oh, notify you about it.
No one at that meeting, Leo said, Louis, did
Are we in public comment right now?
I brought up the idea of what I wanted to do, didn't I? And what did you say? Yeah, you said, I don't want it in my backyard.
No, I don't want it.
Okay, one person's talking. If you can get up and after he speaks and contradict or whatever you like to do. But right now, there's just one person talking.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to start a ruckus, but I don't like being accused of stuff, and that's why my wife's not here. I don't want to have to see the abuse that these people give someone that wants to do something for the community. But anyways,
it's $2 million with $58,000 in property tax per year. That's what we call revenue. It complies with the new comprehensive plan, the new one we just passed. So, do you want to use it, or do you want to put it on the shelf and dust it? Okay?
When I was a kid, East Avenue, you'd sit out there in an afternoon, 4 or 5 cars might go by in an afternoon. Right now, we're at 23,000 cars a day. That's a lot of cars. That's a lot of people looking in your front yard going, hey, what are you doing? So, what I'm saying is, I don't need 37 units in my backyard saying, hey, now that you can't use your front yard, well, we want to look in your backyard too. What I'm seeing here is somebody just coming up here and talking in circles, really not giving you much information, and really not telling you what really is going to happen. Tonight, there's no more information than there was when you voted no. There is no more information than when you voted no, so I don't see why anybody should change their vote and pass this right now. There should be a dead on arrival. Thank you very much.
Constructing a 3-story, 37-unit building would totally destroy our oasis in the city that doesn't have many left. Mr. Ouellette's lawyer said Mr. Ouellette knows what is good for our neighborhood because he grew up here. Yes, he did. However, he hasn't lived in our neighborhood for many, many years, and he doesn't have a clue what's good for the neighborhood. It's been a long and hard road for our neighborhood. It's very difficult for us to think about seeing a 3-story building in our residential area. That's what the kicker is. And please, Mr. Ouellette, don't think we don't like seniors. We all are seniors. Even I'm 55 plus.
I am against this rezoning to have this project go forward. I was born and raised in Lewiston. I am a property owner and a taxpayer, and I've lived in Lewiston all my life. After my mother passed away 13 years ago, I made the decision to purchase my family home and invest in this neighborhood. And the reason behind this decision was because I love the neighborhood I grew up in and have many, many happy memories and attachments. There are quite a few of my neighbors that also grew up there and have purchased their family homes because they love the neighborhood. Now, 4 years ago, I got married, and my husband suggested, why don't we sell the house to downsize? I thought about it, but after discussing the subject, we decided to stay because we both loved the peacefulness and the beauty of the neighborhood and our neighbors. His lawyer stated that they wanted to add diversity by adding elderly to the mix. Well, guess what? The neighborhood is already diverse with elderly mix. I'm elderly. My husband's elderly. Several people here are elderly. He also stated that Mr. Ouellette was a Lewiston resident. He is not. He only grew up there. I grew up with him, okay? His lawyer stated that Mr. Ouellette was not going to force this giant project into this lot without working with his neighbors. Well, if that was the case, then why didn't he speak with the neighbors first before even considering this project? Mr. Ouellette didn't even have the decency to knock on the neighbors' doors before considering this major project. Could it be because he already knew that he wasn't going to get a glowing acceptance from the neighborhood residents? As you can see from the petition that I submitted to the council a couple of weeks ago, all the neighborhood residents are not in favor of this project. And as I mentioned earlier, I grew up with Mr. Ouellette. He could have talked to me one-on-one and let me know what was happening and get my views, and other people in the neighborhood, he knew he could have approached them also, but he chose not to, okay? He chose just to have us get a letter in the mail and say, whoa, what's this? You know, and then we got, you might as well say, surprised, really surprised. His lawyer stated that it was a good choice for infill development. All I could see is it would sacrifice the quality of our neighborhood and disrupt our lives. But the positive infill development area would be all the vacant lots downtown, which are on city bus routes and closer to facilities, especially those without cars. My other concerns, as you're aware of, is safety, increased traffic, emergency entrance, exits, the bright security lights they'll shine in people's homes, privacy, decrease home value and the wetlands, which I will speak about later. My concern is Mr. Willet's honesty and forthcoming concerning this project. He didn't care about the neighbors, only what he wanted to do. Even if it was through deceitfulness and lies, such as telling the planning board he was not the developer, only to discover at the last council meeting he was. Also asking people to sign petitions when they didn't even live in Lewiston and told them to write in a Lewiston address. That's illegal. The city and the EPA are certainly not going to allow someone to fill in the wetlands. So the only way this project would be able to be built on this land is if he filled them. Filled the wetlands, and you know they're not going to allow him to do that. I've already spoken to the EPA, and they said, no, that's not allowed. I mean, it is a habitat of several wildlife there, and it's disturbing the habitat. And it's a vernal pool, and you can't do that. And what else did I want to say? What?
Anything else? Because I wanted to kind of,
Yeah.
I think one of the issues, and I'd like David to speak eventually.
Okay, but I just want to add, please do not consider this vote. It failed 4-3 on January 3rd. Please do not change the results of the previous vote. And thank you for listening.
So I just want to remind the council that we're still in public comment period. So it's,
Can I, well, okay.
no, actually.
She seems to be asking
no.
us questions, so.
Right, but I don't
But I wanted
believe
to
that public
respond,
comment is supposed
yeah.
to be a back and forth.
Oh, well, no one said anything. I'm sorry.
No, you were fine.
Oh.
You're fine. It's him that's the problem.
You're the problem. Councilor Leiston, you're the problem.
I'll just, for everybody remembers, I'm Bruce Damon. I'm chair of the planning board. We did our due diligence on this. We don't know what he's going to build. And we won't until he has a right to build something there. That's what this rezoning is all about, giving him the right to invest his money and his resources to determine what he might be able to put there. But we have spent a significant amount of time on the planning board to make what we felt was an appropriate, thoughtful, and due diligent recommendation to the council that this is in full conformity with the just recently adopted comp plan, that it serves many of the goals and purposes of that comp plan.
Zach Pettengill, also on the planning board as well. But I did want to address an issue, and it appears that this process is being driven by fear. Everybody's afraid of a building. Everybody's afraid of people moving in next to them, which isn't very neighborly, I might add. Again, did want to add, too, that it's kind of fitting that this fits 100% of the model of the comp plan, and we just adopted it tonight, and it's already fighting its first battle. So again, I ask that you don't let the fear of what this could be jade you into voting against it, but let's allow Mr. Willett and let's allow the city the chance to try to make some money.
You know, I question, you said you're not lying, but you came here tonight saying you didn't know what you wanted to build. But the first meeting we came to, you wanted a 3-story, one-building property with 40 units in it. So you did know what you wanted to build. I'm wondering why the cart is being put before the horse. When you want to do a project like this with a planning board, it's my thought process that you would do your homework first, and that's at your own cost. But we've all been dragged in here. We really have concerns about, well, really, a 3-story building with everyone being able to see in our backyards and, lots of extra things that we talked about at the first meeting that I came to. Normally, you would do the research first before asking for a zoning change.
And I was fortunate enough to live next to a woman called Mrs. Bazinet. And I remember she'd sit out in the backyard and we'd talk, and We knew her days were numbered, and she wasn't afraid of dying. That woman was the toughest woman I ever met in my life. And I would sit there and talk with her. And we talked about subdividing the land and what happens when you go and what happens with your property. And I can tell you, sitting in this room, sitting in that rocking chair next to her fireplace as we played Jeopardy and as we played Wheel of Fortune, she did not want this to happen in any way, shape, or form. I can guarantee you that. I bought my home on Webster Street because of the wetlands behind it, because I was told no one will ever build behind me. Now, I don't know if it was brought up because I came in late, and I apologize. There's 2 properties on East Avenue. I can almost guarantee you those buildings will be torn down and an entranceway will be made from East Avenue into this property. So now you have an entrance on East Avenue, you have an entrance on Webster Street. I don't know about you, but backing out of my driveway at 8 o'clock in the morning to go to work is a nightmare. Is a nightmare right now. I couldn't imagine a facility like that. I'm a firm believer in God. And God puts stuff on your plate that you can handle. I travel to Connecticut every weekend. I take care of a 90-year-old and an 86-year-old in-law. No one knows a convalescent home like I do. It scares me so much, I don't want to get old. I don't want to be 90. I don't want to have my daughter prop me up to go to the bathroom. Okay, I get it. I understand it. And I've seen the facilities that they're in, the living homes that they're in, firsthand, every weekend for the last 3 years. You know what? I don't want my people there. I don't want my parents there. I don't want me there. You know, I get it. I get the zoning. I understand about property tax. But you know, I said to myself a long time ago, I said, geez, we getting all these Section 8 people in and we're kicking out the senior citizens out of apartments that they've been in for 30, 35, 40, 50 years. They had to leave because of Section 8, because it was guaranteed money to the city. That's where our housing went for our senior citizens. We lost it to Section 8. We lost it to all the people that come into our city and get apartments and get education. But we gave all that away. And now I remember saying East Ave was the dividing line. This is the good side of Lewiston. This is the bad side of Lewiston. Okay? I want to keep that line. I don't want a big development next to my home. I don't want bright lights shining in my living room window. I enjoyed watching Mrs. B across that field in her recliner. I enjoy Mr. Gisjardin next to me, 90-something years old. Okay? I enjoy sneaking a beer over to him. Don't tell your wife. I won't. You know, that's neighborly. That's what Lewiston is all about. You have plenty of places to put a home. It doesn't have to be in residential Lewiston, because they can buy the property just like a Monopoly game. I'm not on Park Place. I'm on Baltic Avenue. I have to work from 3 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night to support my home. And I'm going to fight for that home. I just don't agree with what has happened. It has nothing to do with the developing, the zoning. It has to do with residential property. It has to do with the beauty of Webster Street. As you drive down, you can see the fields. Let's not take that away. Let's not let urban become Portland. If I wanted to be Portland, I'd live in Portland. Don't let what's happening right in front of our face happen on Webster Street. Let it happen in downtown Lewiston, where the Section 8 people are. Give back some of that to the senior citizens, the 55 and older. And by the way, I'm 55 now, so maybe I can just sell my house and move next door. Wouldn't be much to pack. I'm not trying to be a wise ass in any way, shape, or form. I never come to these things. I'm as far from a politician as you want me to be. But I sat with Mrs. Badzinette. I watched her deteriorate. I know her wishes when she had a sound mind. She taught me how to crochet. Really? So, for what it's worth, don't take that away from us. Don't plant it somewhere else. Because we don't want it. That's why it's zoned as residential. That's why everybody around there that I speak with, I bought my house in a residential zoning area. Why on earth would I want it to change? And then if you change it, it never changes back. So if he doesn't want to do it or wants to sell his property or whatever, they can do whatever they want with that property. We have no say anymore. I'm not ready to give that right up. I'm not ready at all. And as councilmen, please don't take that right away from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
My husband and I, we work opposite shift jobs so we can provide our daughters a nice home. We just bought that house in June because of a quiet neighborhood. And I just really hope that you guys, vote no and reconsider this because we lose all privacy to our home.
Thank you.
I have never, ever seen a planning board just go, oh yeah, change the zoning. We'll find out down the road what you want to put there. And plus that, the developer doesn't walk in and go, well, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but somewhere down the road, I plan on putting a building up there. No developer does that. He checks the land out. He finds out up front. Why would he just come in and say, well, I don't want to spend any money right now because I might lose it? Well, guess what? You're going to lose it somewhere along the way. If you don't do it now, you're going to lose more. So why would you want to do that? And the planners are coming up here telling us that this is a very good project. Now, would you tell me what the project is? It's nothing. It's 2 acres of land. There's no layout. He doesn't even know what he wants to put there. If he wants real estate, take that house that the Bassinets lived in, tear it down, build a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and sell the whole thing. He can get his money back. Okay? And I understand the elderly thing, but that gentleman is right. You people have run people out, and now you're trying to dump them in somewhere else. Okay? And if you were doing it, if they were doing it in your backyard, you'd be screaming and yelling. Because you're going to end up with an albatross in your backyard. That's a 3-story building next to residential homes. It doesn't make any sense. And I know you've been in planning and all that. And I've been in real estate. But let me tell you, this type of deal is the kind I saw in Chicago. This isn't Chicago. This is Lewiston. I was born and raised here. I left when I was 18, joined the Navy. I said I'd never come back to this city. And you know why? Because what's going on right now is what was going on in 1968. And I said, these people are nuts. So I come back 50 years later, and you're doing the same things. And you don't understand why Lewiston doesn't get better? Stop and think, folks. You don't alienate a whole bunch of neighborhood people just to stick a building in. It doesn't make any sense. Especially when the guy can't even tell you what he's going to do. You've got no way of knowing it. And I know the lawyers are saying stipulations and everything, but you know downright, when that building goes up, he can do whatever he wants because the city isn't going to stop him. Are you going to go knocking on doors when there's a 30-year-old there? No, you're not. We're the ones that are stuck with it. So think about that. That's all I'm asking. It just amazes me. And I understand the elderly thing. But hey, nature is a good thing too. And you're ruining that. And you've ruined it in a lot of other places in this city. And that's all you're doing here. Thank you.
I am a senior. I'm 62 years old. So I understand the housing part. But you have to understand our neighborhood. We have people there. Myself, I've been there 52 years. Jim's 20 years. We got 26 years. We've got people we've grown up with since kids that are still in this neighborhood. Deb, she's been there. This is what we're trying to tell you. You can't put something in that neighborhood where people have been there for 50+ years and expect it to not change the neighborhood. It's a residential neighborhood, and that's why we're all there for so long.
Else? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Back to the council.
Mayor?
Yes.
Wow is about all I can say because you guys are amazing, and that's it. Just speechless in that regard. But there are some things I do want to say. The planning board spent a lot of time on this issue. That's what a planning board member told me. They went over it and went over it and went over it and spent a lot of time on it. Really, they did. You know, the Pettingill School Park, there was a lot of people in this room, perhaps, that wanted to see houses built on that because that's infill development. That's going to increase the tax base. The neighbors and the residents in that neighborhood came to this room, just like you residents are doing, and pleaded their case. And I agreed with them for a number of reasons. One of them, because that's what they wanted in their neighborhood. Now, the fiscal conservative in me says, no. We need houses there because houses are going to be property tax and we increase the tax base and people move in and it's a brand new neighborhood and it's all these great things. And it is all those great things. But in that case, those neighborhood residents came out and spoke for their neighborhood overwhelmingly. And I took a lot of heat for voting for that park, but I did it for the right reasons. Not merely because of the fiscal policy or the property tax revenues, because it wasn't right for that neighborhood. And the council at the time agreed. And I think it's a beautiful thing now. That neighborhood is enhanced by that park. And I don't believe there are any residents that would have preferred houses in that area. Although, like I said, one side of me says, yeah, that makes sense. It really does make sense to put houses in that neighborhood. No. Infill development, we talk about infill development, how it's in the comp plan. We have vacant lots. It was mentioned by a number of residents. Vacant lots downtown, they're dirt. There's nothing there. We have East Avenue and Sabattis. There's nothing there. It's dirt. Those are the infill development spots. We need to find places like that and what would fit into that spot. I'm tiring of people using the comp plan as a political weapon, because you can open this up, and I'm going to read two passages here. Natural environment. This is in the comp plan that we just passed. Despite its status as one of Maine's largest municipalities, Lewiston benefits from a close and intimate connection to the natural environment. Unlike many urban areas, the city has dramatic views of the river and maintains close ties with ponds, streams, forests, and bogs. With a partial network of trails in place, a largely undeveloped edge with working farms and forests surrounds the urban core, providing residents with easy access to rural and natural settings that have seen relatively minimal intrusion from large-scale suburban development. The combination of town and country provides Lewiston with a competitive advantage for those looking for both the urban and outdoor experience. Elsewhere in the comp plan, feature all things green and healthful. The condition of the environment has a significant impact on the quality of life and personal health, and I believe in this wholeheartedly. As a slow-growth community that has experienced a period of economic retraction, Lewiston has an opportunity to capitalize on its abundance of natural resources within close proximity to its evolving downtown core. Additional protection of open spaces, updated land use policies, and aggressive strategies to limit sprawling development are needed to maintain Lewiston's quality of life as more people look to move into the city. That was on page 74 and 204, if anyone wants to follow along. Using this comp plan as a political weapon needs to stop. I voted for it because it's excellent, and there are a lot of things in here that may contradict one another. And that's what comes back to the city council, staff, committees, to decide really where that balance is. of balancing this out. Sometimes infill development may be appropriate. Other times, it may not be appropriate. And I believe that the residents in this neighborhood fit this particular part of the comp plan because they're speaking out. Just like Pettingill School Park, there's a need within neighborhoods where infill development buildings might be appropriate in other cases. I'm opposed to reconsidering this because I believe the vote we made a couple weeks ago was the appropriate vote, given the comp plan, given what the residents feel. It isn't about senior housing. We need senior housing. There is nothing anti-senior. There's nothing against seniors or senior housing. And I believe everybody on the council feels that we need senior housing. However, there needs to be the appropriate use and the appropriate application. And I believe that the residents have spoken clearly. I believe it fits with the comp plan. This is a valuable little environment. It is, in a sense, the identity of that neighborhood right now. And I think it's beautiful to have that close to downtown. You don't have to walk up a big hill. It's right there. And just like Pettingill School Park, it's something that enhances the neighborhood. The residents have spoken. I see no reason to reconsider this. And, you know, the council will vote as it votes, but my vote is going to remain as it was 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Councilor Bouchard.
I'd like to echo Councilor LaChance's wow. It's great when we can get residents out here. That's what this process is about. I'm glad you're all here. And even for the planning board members who are here, thank you for all the work you did. I know they worked really hard on this. The planning board's job is a little different than ours. The planning board isn't quite as beholden to the voter as we are, to the will of the people. They need to look at development. They need to look at how we can improve development. They need to look at the comp plan and interpret it. As Councilor LaChance found a passage that, you know, supports our point of view, I'm sure I'm looking at Councilor Cloutier with hers open. She'll have another one. We could have 7 different passages out of this comp plan that any one of us could put with our narrative that could make this development either shine or go down in flames. I'm sure everybody in this room could find something else that was totally different. There's a lot to it, and it's all about application. And where that application comes in for me, this has nothing to do with senior housing. Absolutely nothing to do with development. This is about a neighborhood where people, like this young lady, bought a house up against a piece of woods because it's a single-family zone neighborhood and nothing was going to be built back there. I live in one of those too. You want to put something behind my house, I'm going to be here fighting. From down there, let alone up here. I don't care if you want to put an Olive Garden in the middle of that, and that's 1A on my list. Okay? If the people say no, the answer is no. It's really simple. If the people were 50-50, this is where we take an opportunity and assess the situation as a council and lead. We say, you know what, maybe it is a good idea. This isn't even close. There's not one person who abuts that property who wants this. Now, I'm a little saddened because as a capitalist myself, I understand the developer wants to do something with this land. You got 2 acres, middle of the city. We have a need for senior housing. Would it be great? Yeah, it would. Somewhere in this process, and I don't know where, and I'm not pointing fingers at the residents, I won't point fingers at Mr. Willett, this relationship broke down. Somewhere. Not for me to judge where, okay? If this project is going to go anywhere, and I'm voting no to even bother reconsidering this because I don't have a single resident who's changed their mind. So it's silly to even think about going against a mass of residents who are 100%. It's foolish, it's irresponsible governance on our part, and it's why people don't trust politicians. Completely irresponsible to pervert this about senior housing or the need for housing. I could go on a rant. I'm going to save it. It's not about that. It's about you. I would encourage Mr. Willett to rekindle the relationship. If we can vote this down, rekindle that relationship. Work with you. Somehow. I'm not saying it's your fault at all. I'm just saying go back to the basics. Work with the residents. Come back here with them where they're all telling us, you know what? We've talked it over at the planning level. We've talked it with staff. We think this is going to be a good idea. Our concerns are put at bay. And the time to do that isn't after we make a zoning change. That's putting the cart before the horse. Just like telling anyone that this is about senior housing. It's not. Nothing to do with senior housing. This is about the people who live there, who bought a home, and knew it was not, that nothing was going to be put behind them. Okay? I didn't see anything in this comp plan about changing zoning to shoehorn in a senior development in a piece of woods. I didn't see it. Now, when I first read this, I think Councilor LaChance was in the same boat. I can't speak for him right now. I was going to vote for it. I had no heartburn with doing this project. I thought it was a good project. It's a development. Planning board voted 7-0. As Mr. Damon said, that doesn't happen. They have some people on the planning board that vote no just to be the no. Right? I see it. But when you all started speaking up, well, I'm an elected official. I need to listen. And that's my job on this. If that was already zoned office residential, even with all you here, unfortunately, I'd have to say I'm sorry. As a capitalist, I'd look at Louis and say, you got the green light from me, because you knew it could happen. Yeah. None of these people knew this could happen. None of these people thought it could happen, just like I sit on Garcelon Bog knowing nothing's ever going behind me. And it really rang to me when that gentleman started talking about the neighborhood and knowing everybody. I mean, I live on the same kind of street. I grew up with everybody. We still have a lot of people, holdovers. I understand the camaraderie. I understand the neighborhood. And I also understand change is hard, okay? Like I said, if you were zoned where this could already be, I'd even tell you, sorry, you knew it could happen, but you didn't. And you don't deserve it. And there's really no reason we should even reconsider this, because I don't feel like if this goes back to the planning board, that relationship is at a point where you're going to come back with anything positive. I just think it's deteriorated to that point, and I think it needs to start at square one again, somewhere. And if it comes back positive, I'm happy to vote for it. So, no for today.
Councilor Joy.
Yeah, just a brief thought. Councilor Chance and Bouchard covered just about everything. But it's a neighborhood conservation area. Mr. Willett, you knew that. You own the property there. You know how it's zoned. You have limited development potential because of that. You've changed your mind. Now you want to develop it. They don't. They live there. So I don't think it's fair to use the planning board and to use the city council, because you've changed your mind, to force those priorities on other people. I understand the capitalist aspect, but it is what it is. And I can't see, as an elected official, upsetting the tranquility of a neighborhood when they haven't changed their mind. They like it the way it is. They like it neighborhood. They want it to stay that way. As far as I can see, all the abutting properties agree with that. And I agree with Councilor Chance. I don't know you. You're probably a good guy. But this whole neighborhood relationship thing, that bothers me, that there's so much animosity here. But I understand where they're coming from. And I have to yield to, they bought homes in this area with certain expectations. And they don't want those changed. And you're asking us to change that, because that's a decision that you've made. And you want us to force that on all of them. And I just can't. It's not right. They have certain expectations. They've paid for those properties too. They paid taxes on those. You knew when you owned the property what it was going to be zoned to be. That isn't their fault. You've changed your mind. And I'm not going to use my seat on this council to say, you know what, Mr. Willet's changed his mind. You all just need to suck it up and let it go. I can't do it. I can't do it. We shouldn't even bring this up. The people don't want it. This should be the end of it. We shouldn't even be discussing this again. That's it.
And I know that it's impacting your single-family house there, but I'm looking at it, as citywide. And I know the impacts are going to be, if this project goes through in any way, the impacts are more on the neighborhood. But there's also times when you listen. There's also times when you say, how can we make this a better project and serve some other interests within citywide. I think that it's worth it to the developer what he's gone through. I think I know more about this project than probably any project that's been before the planning board ever. And I was the planning director. So I understand, I've been there, I understand the concerns of the neighbors, I understand the positions of some of the councils. I agree with a lot of what they say, but I do think it needs its day in court. Thank you.
there was a statement made that making this about senior housing is disingenuous, and I want to be clear that that is 100% about what this is about for me. And if you want to believe that that is disingenuous, then that is certainly you can certainly do that. But I want to be clear that that is, what is important to me about this. We've talked about the voice of the people and how we need to respect that. And at the risk of being accused of using the comp plan for my political agenda, I'm going to say that hundreds of people came out to public input sessions to help put this comp plan together. And so while I am respectful about the voices that came here to this room tonight, I think that those are also voices that we have to take into consideration. Because when this plan was put together, those people, we told those people that we were going to value their voice as well. And I don't think that, we get to just ignore them when we decide that it's appropriate to do that.
But I think we ought to look out for some of the wetlands for sure, and some of these other things, like we'd like to know, as Councilor Lyson said, what the footprint's going to look like, how high it's going to be, some of these things. And perhaps if we could see the neighbors get together with Mr. Willett, but that might not happen. I don't know at this point. That's why I asked for reconsideration. I'm not, I don't want it to be a ping pong. If we send it to the planning board, you look it over one more time. You decide, especially maybe the wetlands aspect and the some of the how many units, and a little bit more specific. And if it doesn't work out that we can do this and have senior housing, I will vote no. My tendency is to go that way, but then I'm thinking, I think we need more information. I just feel like I need more information.
I think personally my answer to your question about how we decide, sitting right there, that's a pretty good decision maker for me. Councilor Lyson, I cannot in a vacuum disagree with anything you said about development, about giving development a chance. If I thought for a minute that we could just throw this back to the planning board and Mr. Willett was going to sit with all these people and they were going to come back here and give us a thumbs up, we still wouldn't be talking about this. I would have moved the darn question by now and we'd be home eating. But
I'm really hungry.
But I just don't see that happening. I just see us back here in 2 months after I don't think they get anywhere, and sorry if I'm a pessimist for it, but I just think that relationship's too far gone to be close enough to come to a consensus. So we're going to be back here at another 2-hour meeting in a month, and we're going to be doing this again, and who knows, maybe it gets reconsidered again. And we can talk about it even longer, because it's our favorite thing to do this year, apparently. If I thought that relationship was close, I'd vote to reconsider it, send it to the planning board, let's get it done. But it's further away than what we're working on, Councilor Lyson, in my opinion. I just, I don't see it. I'm just wondering if, by even voting to reconsider it, that we answer the question when it's appropriate to ignore you. And that's not a question I'm willing to answer with a yes at all. And not to get a back and forth here, and I don't disagree with you. If I thought the difference between a vernal pool and a sand pit was going to move these folks to be there, or the difference between whether a bus can be there and whether a bus can't was enough to bring these folks back and go, yeah, let's do this, I'd be all for you. But I'm looking at faces, and that doesn't matter. Vernal pool, lake, desert, it doesn't matter to the people who are affected there. And if we can't change their minds, I am in no position as an elected official to tell the people who live there they're wrong. And I just, it's irresponsible of us to do that.
One more thing, just one more thing. Actually, I'm thinking that it is a vernal pool, and that because of the types of animals that are there, the little peepers, the frogs who are endangered, the turtles, the nesting birds, and I'm thinking of, that children's book, Make Way for Ducklings. cute. It was in the middle of Boston, right? And they had all these little ducklings, but it was a bigger pool. I frankly, I'm sorry, but I have a feeling you're not going to be able to build on that wetland. And if that happens, that might change things a great deal in your thing. I'm talking to you, Mr. Willett, but I hope that's okay. Is it okay to do that, to talk to people?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Yes. Final thought, a brief one. I'm listening to the banter back and forth about this study, this review, that review. The sense I'm getting is, for any of that to happen, we need to rezone out of neighborhood conservation, as it says right here. You don't want that to happen. You don't want the project there. You don't care what the studies say. I'm with Councilor Bouchard. It's a no.
Just a quick, there's some things that are science. There's some things that can be determined. I just don't think we have done that. I'm not going to get. Well, a lot of people think that, but it is about the science. It's either a vernal pool or it's not. It's a wetland or it's not. You've got land. So
just for clarification,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, the motion before you is to approve reconsideration of the vote taken at the January 3rd, 2017 City Council meeting regarding first passage of the conditional rezoning of the property at 209 Webster Street from the NCA district to the OR district, subject to a conditional agreement. If you vote yes on this, then and the yes prevails, then the motion printed at the bottom will be immediately before you for action. If you vote no, then the vote that was taken on the 3rd will stand. All set, Mr. Mayor, for the Counselor from Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
No.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
yes.
Ward 2?
No.
Motion passed by a vote of 4-3, so the reconsideration passed, so now the motion immediately, automatically before you is to approve first passage of the amendment to the zoning and land use code and map to conditionally rezone the property at 209 Webster Street from the Neighborhood Conservation A District to the Office Residential District, subject to a conditional agreement, and to continue the public hearing for final passage to the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to refer this project and conditional rezoning agreement back to the planning board with some specific, for them to look at some specific conditions. One of those would be to make this project subject to being a 55-year-old or senior housing project. Second of all, that the DEP be involved examining the wetland and examination for the vernal pool. That we also, if there is a traffic impact analysis done and determines that a full traffic study has to be done, that be implemented prior to, by conditions in the conditional zoning agreement. Let's see. Also, I would like if in fact this project goes before the planning board, I'd like to have them with a favorable recommendation, also ask for the bus transit people to take a look at to see if this could be included in the bus system. I don't know if there's and one of the other things. This is not to be a congregate care facility. I think some people were confusing that. So to me, this is a independent living. It's independent. Excuse me.
Please sit down, okay?
So I guess anything else that people can add, they can add as a friendly amendment to that motion. But I want to refer it back to the planning board so that it can have due process, so that we can get a lot of that information before we take a final vote on the rezoning. So I'll move that.
Mr. Mayor?
Can we have a second first?
Second.
We do have a motion and a second, so I would just comment that, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
That we will be here again in several months. I don't believe that Mr. Willett is going to gain any ground with the residents who live in this neighborhood. I don't believe that the wetlands issue is going to make a difference with the residents who live in the neighborhood, because they obviously do not want any development. Additionally, rezoning this from neighborhood conservation A, which is conserving that single-family neighborhood, to something outside of that zone to accommodate a development that nobody wants, I really do not believe the residents and Mr. Willett will come to an agreement. I will not vote to send this to the planning board because I think it's going to be a grand waste of time. And the residents will not see this as acceptable, and I can understand why. Thank you.
I'll just echo Councilor LaChance already said it, but I just, our planning board works hard. They have a lot in front of them. I don't see how running over this issue again in probably at least 2 public sessions is a good use of their time when we already know what the people are going to say. So voting on this to me is telling the people we're going to listen or we're not going to listen. And that's essentially what we're voting on, because we already know what the answer is going to be, despite pools, buses. Doesn't matter. We know what the answer is going to be from the people. So I just ask any counselor, if you're here to listen to the people who are affected by these people, you vote no now, and don't put them through this again. Don't waste our advisory board's time. They have a lot of other things on their plate that they need to do, rather than go over something that in the end, if you're standing with the people, you're going to vote no as a personal counselor on anyway. So that's my only plug.
But I am a resident, and Mr. Willett knew that when he bought Mrs. Bazinet's property off her children who wanted the money, okay, that he knew it was residential. He knew it wasn't zoned for what he intended to use it for. He knew. And I don't think the citizens of Lewiston should be punished for him not doing his homework, for him not saying, hey, this is residential. I can't build here. Oh, I'm going to see what politician I can get under my skin, and I'm going to see if we can get that changed. I don't play with guns because I don't want to get shot. Okay? I don't think this should go back to, hey, we're going to find out if this is a wetland. We don't want anything built there. You don't need to build a test. I bought my home 22 years ago coming out of the Navy because there was wetland in the back, and my children can see the woods. They can see the raccoons running through the woods. A bear got caught in a tree. Is a bear going to get caught on your lamppost? Hopefully he's 55 years old. I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to be facetious in any way, shape, or form. But I'm speaking from my heart because I am not a politician. And I want to commend the people that are up there, the fight that they're doing for us. Let's test this, let's test that. We don't want any testing to go on. We don't want nothing built there. If he wants to play within the rules of a residential building, build a home. Build a beautiful home. Have a nice swimming pool. Invite me over. We'll have a barbecue. Just like I did with Mrs. B. We don't want anything that's outside the zoning. We don't want the game to be changed. I'm 55. I've been there 22 years. So pretty much half my life I lived there. Would you like it if they changed the rules halfway through your life? I don't want the rules changed. And nobody in this room does. Do you? No. But, it's all camaraderie. I don't want buses in my neighborhood. I don't want a big building in my neighborhood. I want the rolling fields. I want to glance out my window and still see Mrs. B's backyard and remember her, because she was the sweetest, hardest working woman there ever was, and she does not want this. I sat with her and asked her. So when you say, let's revisit, I don't think like a developer. I think like a homeowner. You said that you have residents, you have like nephews or nieces or somebody, but is it you living there? Is that what you want to come home to after you just work 15 hours a day? Is that what you want to drive in your driveway and see? Not me. I want to see that bear in the woods. I want to see all the different birds flying in the woods that you can see. I have a red cardinal that comes back every year. There is 2 this year. You're correct, because it's a male and female. Are we going to see all that? That's going to all go away. We don't need to deal with something that's right in our backyard that we can do something about. It's common consensus. We don't want it. The people that abut those properties do not want it. Not one person on this board drives home and is going to see that. I'm going to. I don't want it. Do you want to drive up and see it when you come home at night? There's your answer. Let's not waste the time. I get it. We don't want it rezoned for nothing. We don't need the wetland rezone to see if we can build on it. We don't want nothing built on it. You know what we want built on it? The frogs. And the birds that land there to drink. And a little skating where his son used to go down in the backyard and skate on the frozen pond. That's what we want to see. I don't want to see buses. I don't want to see that. And I thank you very much. I don't know what protocol was. I wouldn't even know I wasn't supposed to speak after something got closed. I didn't know none of that. I'm not a politician. I'm just a concerned citizen who loved Mrs. B with all my heart and soul. And I promised her that I would fight for her. Because I'm not about the money. I'm about her. And I'm about my neighborhood. And about my camaraderie. That's why I stay here. And I can pretty much guarantee you, if you build that building, you can buy my piece of land from me. I will offer it to you. Because I don't want to be here.
All right. Speak to the up here.
Yes, I'm sorry. Again, I don't know the rules, you know, but I feel like I'm in a street fight. I feel like I'm in a street fight for a home that I bought with the rules with this was residential. End of story. Can never be changed. Don't change the rules on me at 22 years. Don't change the rule on him 50-something years. That's all we're asking. It's not to change the rules halfway through the game. Thank you.
Usually the people that help vote you in for this office, you would fight for them. So I would hope you would fight for them if something like this would happen.
So if you're all set with the vote, Mr. Mayor, so Councilor from Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
No.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7.
No.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
No.
Motion passed by a vote of 4-3.